going to start, and everyone else can catch up, because otherwise I'll be waiting.
Dimitri's having breakfast.
Dimitri's having breakfast. Well, you know, breakfast is a good thing, you know. So, everyone in here probably knows me already, but I'm Louis Rosenthal, and I'm the managing member of Arca Noae. And I've been an I've been an IT consultant since the late 1980s, mid 1980s. I have multiple Novell certifications in NetWare and in Linux. I don't have any, interestingly enough, I hold no OS2 certifications, but I've worked with OS2 since OS2 2.0. And in my accounting office that I run with my brother, we use ArcaOS on our desktops exclusively, and we have been an OS2 shop since 1990 or so, 1990, 1991. Yeah. That doesn't mean that we don't use software on other platforms, but we do not have standalone Windows machines. All of our Windows sessions are run on a virtual terminal server running on a 64-bit Linux host in the rack. I won't let that stuff loose on the network. Just, you know, bugs fly in through open windows. So, every year I do one of these roadmap sessions, and I did one in May at Warpstock Europe. That was just before we had released ArcaOS 5.1.1. So this is an update to that, what's coming now in the upcoming 5.1.2 release and beyond that. So just so everyone knows, we number our releases with 3 digits and dots in between, right? So we have a major release, a minor release, and a bug fix release. So 5.1.2 is a bug fix release on 5.1.1. Any questions about any of this yet? Good, good.
Could you stand just a little bit?
I can stand one.
That's close.
I mean, I'm not Reed Richards, so I can't quite reach the space bar. So we still support 5.0, ArcaOS 5.0. We have commercial customers who are running 5.0 because in their environments, the features that were introduced with 5.1.1 were not really essential, and they already had an installed base of 5.0, so they can keep doing that. In fact, for our resellers here and watching online, if you have commercial customers who need additional 5.0 licenses, you can order additional 5.0 licenses. That's fine with us. Pricing still holds as it has been for 5.0 commercial. We no longer sell new 5.0 personal licenses. Can't buy them online. Resellers cannot order it. Instead, 5.1 is our current release, so 5.1.1 is our current maintenance release for the 5.1 branch. And that will continue for a while. So 5.1.2 is coming up. I don't know how many 5.1 releases we'll have before we go to 5.2. It depends upon when we're ready to go to 5.2 and what bigger features we want to introduce. Typically, we don't introduce features in a bug fix release. There may be a feature or two that has been introduced in something that has been updated in the software, so we get a new feature sort of by default with that. But it's not a reason for us to do a bug fix release.
Do you have to buy new licenses from IBM from time to time, or?
Well, when we deplete our inventory, yeah.
But that hasn't happened yet. Or is this like top secret?
We had to warehouse a huge amount of licenses initially.
Okay,
We've whittled that number down substantially.
okay.
We have a new agreement with IBM that is pending right now. When I say pending, we have a deal, we just haven't inked it yet, that will allow us to replenish our licenses for a good number of years. You know, my request was in perpetuity. I don't know if IBM wants to go in perpetuity or they want to say, well, after 5 years you can renew. But remember, we released ArcaOS 5.0 in 2017. So 5 years is a pretty long time in the cycle of things. We'll see where we go. We can still get licenses. We still have licenses. We haven't run out of licenses. And IBM is still happy to take our money for more licenses.
And do they provide any support to you?
None.
On your own?
Zip. Nada. Nada. They don't want to know. They do not want to have anything to do with anything we do. The exception to that is we have a worldwide territory for selling ArcaOS, which includes the last version of OS2 Warp 4 plus the last fix pack available. Fix pack 5 on top of MCP. So we have a worldwide territory with a half dozen exceptions. An example would be Dubai, United Arab Emirates. We cannot sell into the Emirates. So when this originally came up, I said to IBM, well, what happens if we have a commercial enterprise come to us and say we want to buy licenses and we're located in Dubai? And IBM said, you refer that customer to us, we will purchase from you and we will deal with the customer in Dubai.
I wonder why that is.
So that's the situation. And we've had that come up 3 or 4 times over the years. Not just Dubai, but other places in the world. Apparently there are places where IBM has an exclusive arrangement with the government of the country, and that exclusive arrangement means that only they are allowed to sell their product in that country. So it works. Also, large enterprises can shuffle their licenses around between offices however they see fit. Once we sell it to an office that's part of our global territory, whatever that customer does with that license after the fact has nothing to do with us. So they can shuffle them around wherever they want to go.
Can you throw like $1 or $2 to IBM to include the IBM DDK and Visual Basic 3?
The best we could do with the DDK was, as you know, the DDK came with a non-transferable license granted to you if you had a subscription to IBM Developer, OS2 Developer Connection. I made the case to IBM that without a DDK license, we could not distribute certain fixes and new things that were built using DDK sources. So IBM said, we can't give you new DDK licenses. But if you have someone who is retiring from his IBM OS2 development, who is willing to give up his license, Arca Noae may accept that license from that person and grant it to someone else. The license is normally non-transferable. So we were able to get the ability through us to transfer a license. So the word to get out to everyone is that if you are approaching 90 years of age and you have a DDK license and you would like to see that someone else is able to make use of that license that you literally cannot sell on the open market.
How good?
Arca Noae is very happy to warehouse that license from you because we are always looking for young development talent, and that young development talent needs a DDK in order to distribute
And
any
it's
of.
more, like I have a stack
his
of
stuff.
those developer connection DVDs or whatever they were.
Did you have a subscription to Developer
Well, the
Connection?
company I worked for did, and, you know, at some point I cleaned out the closet and took them home.
The way IBM explained it to me was that the person who had the subscription is the one who has the DDK
Yeah,
license.
well, okay.
So we should all put them in our wills.
That's what we should do. Yes, exactly.
So I don't actually have a license, I just have the DVDs.
Exactly. I mean, the argument, someone tried to make the argument that, well, if I got the Developer Connection DVDs, because I was at Warpstock and there were 40 DVDs, CDs sitting on the table, and I snatched them up from the table, I have the full set, then I should have a DDK license. No, that's not what it means at all. That's not what it means. The DDK license is very specific, that it is granted to the person who has a subscription to the Developer Connection. So if a company has a subscription, then the company has a DDK license. So there you have it. Now, you could go back to that company and say, look, you had a subscription to Developer Connection magazine, which came with a DDK license. Would you transfer that to Arca Noae? They could transfer it to us, and we could transfer it to you. Now you have a valid DDK license. Okay?
So, just not to beat that to death,
Yeah.
but I assume that transfer at this point is on the honor system?
Pretty much. I mean, what I would want to be able to show IBM is some kind of paper trail. How many people have records of what subscription they actually had? I mean, who keeps that stuff?
Yeah, that's what my question is, because I had a subscription.
Because it was never something that was stated in the beginning. Please maintain records of your subscription in case you want to transfer your non-transferable license.
And I don't know that I could dredge up any paperwork for that.
The best that we can do is the honor system when it comes to us. And we just have to be careful when we give it out that we have done our best due diligence.
I mean, they may have a record, IBM may have a record.
That's what I'm thinking. They will have the record of all the people.
If they haven't tossed it already.
No, they have to keep that stuff. That's their intellectual property. They can't throw that out.
They don't need to keep what intellectual property? Subscribers to a defunct publication?
But if they're saying the subscription is the license, and they're
That's-
not maintaining a list of the licensees,
I'm just saying that we have to do our due diligence.
There was a second way of getting the DDK though.
Was there?
Yeah, you could they had a website, you could go in there, make a request, you had to request it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they allowed you to download it. I don't remember if they sent an email back even on it, you just.
I
had to
don't
sign
know
in.
if that would have included the DDK.
No, that was
The DDK license.
Now, I don't know about the DDK license for certain, but they allowed you to download the DDK.
Like with everything that has been my experience with large companies, and I'm not disparaging IBM, let's be very clear, we have a non-disparagement clause in our agreement. I would never disparage IBM. I love IBM. IBM's a great company. IBM gave us OS2. But the contradiction, even in the same departments in these large companies, you ask one guy one thing, you ask another guy another thing, you get two completely different answers, and you're left, you know. So then when you ask, they say, well, we'll have to refer it to legal. And then you know that forget it, you know. That's where good ideas go to die. Send it to the legal department.
Couldn't you just create some licenses?
Now, there's a thought.
Create some PDFs and let them challenge you?
Well, there's a
Not
thought.
before.
Yeah, as I say, we have to do our due diligence. That's all. Anyway, so there's a difference between updates and upgrades. An update is when you have a valid support and maintenance subscription, you get updates. So 5.1.1 to 5.1.2 is considered an update, and that's included in your subscription. Interim fixes that we release stand alone, as long as you have a valid support and maintenance subscription. That's an update. You can download that. There's no additional cost. An upgrade from a minor version to a new minor version, 5.0 to 5.1, whether it's 5.0.0 or 5.0.8, and whether it's to 5.1.0, of course you can't get 5.1.0 anymore, 5.1.1 is current. Whatever it is, that's a new purchase. It's discounted if you have valid support and maintenance. It's discounted, and we add your remaining subscription term to your new 5.1 subscription, because a 5.1 maintenance and support subscription is different than a 5.0 support and maintenance subscription. Different content in some cases. But the time period that you have, if you have 3 months left on your 5.0 subscription and you upgrade to 5.1, you will get the 6 months that come with 5.1 plus your remaining 3 months that you had on your 5.0. You don't lose that when you upgrade. We will continue to release updates for 5.0. We haven't orphaned the product or anything. Should the time arise that we feel that we need to spin a new ISO, there may very well be a 5.0.9. So if you're already running 5.0 and you don't need the new features in 5.1, you don't want the new features in 5.1, you can just keep renewing your 5.0 support and get whatever fixes are put out. A lot of fixes are for both units. So when we release an update to ArcaOS desktop, for instance, our streamlined X workplace, that applies to 5.0 and 5.1. You get that for free. And everyone says, well, X workplace is open source. Can I just get that? Yes, but the USB widget that comes with ArcaOS desktop is proprietary. You don't get that with X workplace. So you need to get ArcaOS desktop for that. If you want an update to it, you need to have a valid maintenance subscription. And if you're running 5.0 and 5.0 is great, but you've got a problem with the USB widget and you want to update it, you better have a valid maintenance and support subscription to download the latest ArcaOS desktop and get that new widget. And updates, as I said, that are for 5.1 only. For instance, in 5.1 we changed the Arca Mapper utility. It's completely different, written in Qt. That is not applicable to 5.0. Although I think Alex made that open source and freely available anyway. That's not a great example. Anything that's 5.1 specific, well, updates to the UEFI kernel are 5.1 specific.
Also, the thing for, working with disks and partitions, that improved significantly. There used to be 2 of them, and now there's just one. Like that's an example of that.
The maintenance and installation volume manager.
Yeah, that guy.
I believe
to be like
that
simple and complicated or something.
Simple and advanced.
Mm-hmm.
We still ship the advanced one. We just don't make a desktop object for it.
And is the one that comes with 5.1 a new thing?
It's an update to the other one, but it's freely available for both platforms.
Okay.
So that's not a good example. There are other components that are 5.1 specific. I'm not coming up with a good example in my head right now. But if you're still running a mix of 5.0 and 5.1, you'll need to have support for 5.0 and 5.1 because you can't just download 5.1 content. It may not be applicable to your 5.0 and vice versa. So if you're running a mix, if you've got 5 machines and 3 of them are running 5.1 and 2 of them are running 5.0, you'll need to have subscriptions for both if you're going to continue to run both of them. So some in Arca Noae management took exception to some of the language in these slides. Please take a lot of this as tongue-in-cheek. It's really meant to just set some guidelines about what Arca Noae does and what Arca Noae does not do. Our focus is on providing a usable OS. That's our focus. Not applications, not teaching people how to use the operating system, but providing an operating system. You want additional software? There are places to get additional software. Some of the software is available from us. We support that as we support that additional software. Not as we support, not part of the, maybe not part of the ArcaOS support. But our focus is on getting an operating system that boots and runs and is able to access the hardware that you have so that you can use your machine effectively. We provide updates to those critical system device drivers as the need arises. And we create new device drivers. Well, David creates new device drivers. As necessary as our resources permit, and going along with as necessary for how many people. You know, a lot of people say, I have this gizmo that I got in 1997 and it won't work with ArcaOS. Can you make a driver for that? Well, you're the only guy who still has one of these 1997 gizmos. Why don't you get a new gizmo that we can actually support? You know, so within reason. And again, there's an emphasis on devices that are required for booting, because if the machine doesn't boot, the operating system really isn't worth a lot. What that means, backing up for a moment, what that means is, I want a Wi-Fi driver. My Wi-Fi doesn't work. There are workarounds for that. You get one of those little travel things. It's like that big. It powers off the USB on the system, connects to your Ethernet, and voila, you have a wireless connection. I know it's not as convenient as having Wi-Fi built into the machine, being able to use that Wi-Fi, but it gets the job done. Wi-Fi drivers will come along. They are just not a priority for getting the machine up and running and getting you connected when we have these USB gizmos or one of these travel router gizmos that will get you connected somewhere. That's the point that I'm making.
Now, one question is, you do actually provide a repository of applications in the Yum stuff?
Yes.
And, you know, how does stuff get in there? Like, for example, the C++ compiler, there are newer versions of it. I don't know whether it's a good idea to use them, but, like, why aren't those available in there, for example? Or why isn't the Apache thing in there? Or, like, what's the process for that?
All right. Let me talk for a minute about the Arca Noae Yum repositories. So Arca Noae maintains currently three basic Yum repositories: stable, experimental, and subscription. The stable repository is packages produced by Arca Noae that we freely distribute to the community, that we have tested and we know to work and behave properly.
By produced, you mean like you packaged them as an RPM?
We
and
package them,
You didn't develop them necessarily.
we may have built the binary,
Mhm.
or we may have packaged something else. Here's an example. Paul Smedley does our Samba builds. Paul will do a Samba build and send over and put on his server a zip file of that Samba build. I will grab his zip file, I will package that as an RPM, and push that to the Arca Noae repository. Arca Noae officially, Paul does not work for Arca Noae. Paul is engaged by Arca Noae for some other work from time to time, but he is not one of our regular developers. But I packaged it, and so I put it on the Arca Noae Yum repository. So that's an example of software that was not developed by Arca Noae that gets in there. Alex writes his own software. He packages it as an RPM, and he pushes it to the Arca Noae repository. That's an example of software developed under the auspices of Arca Noae, available in Arca Noae's free stable repository. Experimental are packages along those same lines, both of those couple of tracks, that for whatever reason we either haven't fully vetted the packaging to make sure that an upgrade works the way it's supposed to work, or the content itself. Maybe the binary is experimental. And Alex will say, look, I just made an update to the Arca mapper, but I'm not sure this is going to work for everyone. So I put the package in experimental. Download it, install it, and see if it works for you. Once we vet that it works the way it's supposed to, it will migrate to the stable repository. The subscription repository is, again, both of those two types of packages, those that we've packaged that have been built by others, and those who have been built under our auspices in the first place, but which are meant to be for people with valid software subscriptions only.
You mean for that product? Or
For an ArcaOS product or the drivers and
what's an
software
example of
subscription.
that? I didn't even know this existed.
What's in the
Subscription.
subscription repository? I'll tell you. Two things are in the subscription repository. I package up regular updates, semi-regular updates, to the USB device database and the PCI device database. Those are available to subscribers. Subscribers to ArcaOS support and maintenance, and to the OS2 drivers and software subscription. So if you have either of those subscriptions, you can log into, it's a credentialed repository, the subscription repository. You can log in and download those packages and update your definitions. So the PCI definitions are for the PCI.exe application that maps your PCI devices. And the USB one is for things that identify specific USB devices. There are several packages that rely on that USB IDs list. And so if you want to keep current, you can download those. Why are those subscription? I'm the guy who packages them.
So do they, I couldn't pull the repository up, but does that appear as a choice on those repositories? The subscription repository?
If you go to the wiki on the Arca Noae site, and you go to Arca Noae Package Manager, we have a listing there of all of the the known repositories, including our stable and our subscription and our experimental repositories.
Now,
Other software that is built by other people, generally today, that's the NetLabs repositories. That's software that's essentially built by Bitwise. And that's where that software goes. That is not under our control at all. We have nothing to do with that. However, some years ago, it became apparent to me, this is prior to Arca Noae, it became apparent to me that there was no US-based mirror for that repository. So if you wanted to connect to the NetLabs repository, you had to connect to it in Europe, which was sometimes problematic for people here in the States. So I created a mirror under the 2rosenthals.com domain, and I mirror that. That mirror has nothing to do with Arca Noae. That's 2Rosenthal's mirror of the NetLabs repository.
and is that what you get when you go to the experimental stuff, or does it go to the one in Europe?
It'll go to it, depending on how you have Yum or Arca Noae Package Manager set up. It could go to one of them exclusively, either Europe or the US, or it could go to the one, it could fail over from one to the other, preferring the one in Europe, and then if that's not available, doing this one. Or if you install the Yum Fastest Mirror plugin for Yum, Yum will determine which one is responding better and pull from that one.
Now,
And in a perfect world, the mirror is in sync with the original.
right. Now, what about the particular things I asked about, like the newer C++ compilers?
You know, I knew I was going to do that. I ran my battery down. The newer C++ compilers,
Smedley builds them pretty frequently, actually, and
they're zips.
so that's a headache.
I haven't
those.
packaged any of those.
Okay,
And Paul does not build RPMs.
right, I know.
This is what usually Bitwise Works does actually. Me in
What's that?
particular. Bitwise Works distributes C++ RPM
Newer ones?
archives, and I am the one who does that usually.
And is it on the?
Answering to your question.
Is it on the experimental thing?
First it goes there, and if it works fine, then we just move it to the release repository, and basically
Okay.
how it's done.
And what about like Apache and PHP?
Just the same thing. I mean, it's just the same thing. And there is actually a lot of new stuff in the experimental repository right now. I will be talking about that
Okay.
tomorrow.
All right. Because that's a headache tracking down
Yeah.
stuff for you.
It seems like there might be some confusion between the NetLabs RPM repositories and Arca Noae. That the RPM people are conflating them, not the same.
Yeah, they are completely different. The NetLabs repositories and the Arca Noae repositories. Different content put out by different people.
Right.
Sometimes you will find a library that exists in the Arca Noae repository. For instance, I needed to build new TLS for something some time ago, so I built it, packaged it as RPM, and it ended up in the Arca Noae repository. As soon as Bitwise built new TLS and packaged it, ours is still there, but it will not be updated. Just because our resources are stretched thin enough, duplicating each other's work is really a waste.
Right.
But the content is different. I mean, one has absolutely nothing to do with the other. And the Arca Noae repository is nowhere near as mature or as full as the NetLab repositories.
Okay.
Sorry about that, everyone. I let my battery drain on me.
Turn off the sound.
No, don't switch over yet. Don't switch over. I'm not ready for that to switch over yet. My copyrighted picture is not supposed to be.
Oh,
Is there a way to turn that?
yeah. Settings, the sounds.
So, in this stuff.
I'll switch it over when I'm ready.
System start.
That.
And probably shut down.
Just bear with me for 1 second, everyone.
So-
and
And
we'll
how
be
do you
back
set
in
it?
business.
Or maybe you just set it to 0.
Oh, right, different volumes.
So then if you go to this, oh
You
yeah.
also
okay.
make it, set it to nothing.
Oh, I did, I just went to 0. Okay.
Where was I?
And how do you get rid of this thing? I have my bar at the top, so there's the scroll bar that doesn't do anything down the bottom.
Your icons are slightly off screen.
No, but it's always there, no matter which system. It's never, because I have the bar on the top, just because I like it. When you put it on
One
the
other
bottom,
question.
it covers it up.
You said there was information on the Arca Noae website about the RPM repos?
Yeah,
Where is that?
in the Arca Noae package manager wiki. I should probably cross-reference it somewhere else.
First page.
That doesn't do that.
But we have a
I've never-
table of known repositories.
It doesn't appear on here, so we'll have to look at your settings.
Are you seeing it yet?
I found it on the wiki. Yeah, there it is.
Where is it?
David just asked where
Yeah, so where is it?
it's on the Arca Noae website, wikis,
Mm-hmm.
Arca Noae package manager.
It's
You'll
under there.
find a list of repositories there, known repositories.
And you can add them to the GUI.
Yeah, just follow take the URI and add that to your Arca Noae package manager. All right, so what does Arca Noae not do? We don't do user applications specifically. That's not our focus. So if one more person comes up to me and says, you need to develop a new web browser, we don't develop web browsers. We give you the operating system on which you may run a web browser. Someone else needs to develop the web browser. As we can all see and understand, developing a web browser, porting a web browser to the OS2 platform is arduous work. It is ungodly work. We don't do that work. We have other ungodly work to do.
Didn't work.
We just don't have the human resources to do a browser and an operating system. Well, how can you sell a license for an operating system when you have a browser from the 1990s in it? Well, what can I tell you? What would you like us to do? Stop selling it until we have a browser that's... the problem with the browser wars and browsers in general is that technology keeps moving forward, and it takes us so long to get something ported that works that by the time that's ported and working, we're on to the next greatest thing. But we could be chasing our tails on that one forever. So Arca Noae works specifically with the OS. That's what our shtick is. We don't teach users how to use OS2. If you are, and this is really for the people online, because everyone here knows how to use the operating system. We thank you very much if you're a new or returning OS2 user. And if you would like to learn more about how to use OS2, come to Warpstock, find a local user group, find an online group, and people will give you user-to-user support. The OS2 community, unlike other technology communities, and I speak specifically of the Linux community in this regard, is very welcoming of new users. I have very rarely in my experience seen someone ask a question and have that question answered by RTFM and then just walk away. OS2 users as a whole do not behave that way. It's never been the case. We've always been very welcoming and willing to share our collective knowledge with people. I don't compare us to the Windows community because we're not a group of 13-year-olds telling each other how the world works and everything else. Because at 13, you've got it all figured out. You know what the saying is that goes with that? If I knew half as much at 30 as I thought I knew at 16, think how far I'd be in life now. So I'm not talking about the Windows community at all. I'm comparing the OS2 community to the Linux community. People ask a question in the Linux forums about something, and it seems like a completely legitimate question to me. And the answer comes back RTFM. Yeah, which manual? Which manual should I read? Point me.
And when was the last time they printed a manual?
Thank you. Exactly. Where do I find the manual? OS2 users are not like that. There are resources on the net and in person, like this one, where people can come and exchange ideas and ask questions and get usable answers to their questions. That's not what Arca Noae does. We will provide you with an operating system to use, sufficient documentation with that operating system to be able to use it. If you want more than that, you need to seek that more elsewhere. Because again, we only have so many human resources, and as we all know, writing documentation is a science unto itself. And the more time we spend writing documentation, the less development work gets done. The less development work gets done, the more people complain that we're not developing enough. We don't teach new users how to use computers. Sorry. I used to give computer lessons back in another life. This is a floppy disk. The floppy disk goes in this slot. You need to format the floppy disk before you can store. I know, you don't know what a format is. Let me explain it to you. Let me draw you a pie, and this is a track, and this is a sector, and you need to lay this down logically, magnetically on the floppy disk. We don't do that, okay? Our expectation is, just like if you go to a dealership to buy a new car, you already know how to drive. So if you got a new computer and you don't know how to use it, and you don't know what all the buttons do on it, we are not experts in every manufacturer's latest machine. Please do not ask us to tell you what button to press to turn it on and off. We don't do that. Believe me, we see tickets of all stripes come into our bug tracker. And every ticket requires a response. And every response takes time. And we go right back to that, how much time are we going to spend answering questions in the bug tracker about things that we don't do before it impacts the things that we do? We don't act as a substitute for reading the documentation. If we've already given you the documentation, either with the operating system or in the wiki, and believe me, we take great pains to add to and update and refine the information in the wiki. If we give you a pointer and say, look, what you need is in the USB wiki on the website, read that. Don't ask us to rewrite it just for you and your ticket, please. Again, same thing. The more time we spend writing tickets, the less time we spend getting work done. Ah, the AC kicked on.
Yeah.
So here's the plan for the 5.1 release. 5.1.1, as I said, was current. It's available in English, German, Spanish, and Russian. 5.1.2 is in the final stages. Very short beta cycle this time around. Most of our changes were things that we would have liked to have gotten done for 5.1.1, some tweaks to the installer and whatnot to get it shoehorned into the computer a little bit more easily. There will be a 5.1.3 release at some point and other releases down the line before we run into 5.2. How many of those there are going to be, it all depends. How many additional languages we offer depends on a number of things. Demand. We currently build ISOs internally for 11 languages, including English. They're in varying stages of completion and readiness. We released those 4 languages, the 3 additional ones on top of English for 5.1.1, because we felt that German, Spanish, and Russian were pretty much done to the point of being usable by non-English speakers. French is partway there. Italian's very close. Dutch is probably on par with French, I think. Alex may have different thoughts on this than I, but yeah, could we prod the translators into doing more to get them finished off?
So you have a little stable of translators that work on?
Yeah, we do. We have a stable of translators. As you can imagine, probably more German translators than anything else specifically. But
Spanish is pretty complete?
Spanish is pretty complete. Martin, you use the Spanish version?
Just a little bit. Yeah. I use it.
And you contributed to the...
Not much. Alfredo did everything, and Alfredo did a great job. Yeah.
He's quite the perfectionist. Yeah, Spanish is probably... German and Spanish are top-notch work that's been done on those. Russian, and I'm not taking anything away from Yuri. Yuri's work on Russian is amazingly complete. Yuri wants to translate stuff that is nearly impossible to reach to translate. So he's very particular. This is still in English. This is still in English. As I say, the other languages the translators aren't quite as motivated. And it's difficult to motivate people to translate stuff because it's not exactly the most exciting work in the world. The other languages will be along as we need them. If we have a large commercial customer based in China, for instance, who needs a Chinese release, we'll get farther into that. We do have a Chinese translator who's not been very active.
Japanese?
We have a rough Japanese translation. Alex has done most of the work on that, but I think for Alex it's more for a proof of concept for him than actual nuts and bolts translating work. Manuals that weren't provided by IBM have not been translated to Japanese. And that's another thing. IBM's translations, and I'm not disparaging IBM. IBM did a wonderful job with OS2 Warp and all the languages they offered. And they offered a lot more languages than we do. But their translations are woefully incomplete. For whatever reason. I mean, you'll be looking at a version of, you'll be looking at OS2 in German, and you'll open up a manual, and the manual's in English, because that was never translated. German WinOS2 is pretty much complete, but the other languages, you get English WinOS2. That's just... They did sort of where we are now in the sense that if there was a need for it, then they paid more attention to it. Other than that, it was, yes, and we offer Hebrew. They did offer Hebrew. Hebrew's a tricky one because it's a right-to-left language.
Arabic also, they.
Arabic is also right to left, and that sets up a whole other set of challenges. The double byte character sets, the Eastern languages are tricky. Some of the languages have dedicated kernel builds for those languages. So there's synchronization that needs to go on, and it's a project. A separate project from making the operating system better, just keeping the languages on par with English. So obviously English is our focus, but we don't shy away from the other languages, and we will release them as needed as we get there.
I'm a tester, so I probably shouldn't ask this question, but on 5.1.2, are we intending to upgrade the Samba server components?
David's smiling back there because he knows that's one of my pet peeves. The answer to that question is a qualified maybe.
Okay.
I'm sort of the Samba maven in the group, so that part of the blocker ticket has historically fallen to me. I don't know if I'm going to get there by the time we release 5.1.2. And I don't want to hold up 5.1.2 because I'm not there yet.
Okay, that's a good.
Because it can always be bolted on later,
Yeah.
right? The real holdup with synchronizing the Samba versions has been my inability to figure out what kind of replacement for the configuration components we have. I really want to replace simple Samba configuration center with something else, perhaps written in Qt. Alex does not want to do that. He did a great job on the Qt client components. He doesn't want to get involved in the server components, and I don't blame him for that. And I don't want to get involved in writing the Qt myself, because Qt is not my shtick. Other platforms, Linux really doesn't offer a unified Samba server configuration utility. But OS2, ArcaOS is not Linux. People expect certain things from us that would be more along the lines of what they expect from Windows in that regard. And as we know, if you want to share a drive in Windows, you just open up the properties of the drive and check the sharing box, and it's done. And then the entire world can see all of the private stuff you have on your machine. Which, of course, is the flip side of the coin, is that, we can't just have it toggle on so easily. So this has really been the holdup with it. So I'm going to try, but I have a limited amount of time because we really want to get 5.1.2 out before the end of the year. That's not a promise to anyone in the room or anyone online, but it is a plan. So the main points, as I said, we've got some fixes to the installer. There's some string matching that goes on in the installer for keyboard types and things like that. And David has greatly enhanced that string matching so that you actually get the right keyboard when you say that you have a Spanish keyboard. Things like that, so that you're not fighting with the installer. You've got it all set up in pre-boot, and you think everything's fine, and then you get into the installer and you realize, why isn't that key working? Well, it's not working because the keyboard actually didn't match the one you thought it matched. So that's really been taken care of now. And there are other updates to the installer to make it go in better. Latest drivers, obviously. Latest UEFI loader. Dixie has made some improvements to that stuff, even though He's still in Russia. We're still able to get work from him, and he has graciously provided that work to us and committed it to the repository.
Can you not pay him?
I can't pay him. We're just sort of stuck waiting. So I just keep this running total going in my head, so that eventually we can get him some compensation. But he's a good guy, and he continues to churn out stuff for us, and he's very responsive to bug reports. So he's made some interesting tweaks to the UEFI subsystem for us. That will be in 5.1.2. David will talk more about the drivers when he does his thing, but just to tell you what's included, there's an update to AMOUS that will be included in 5.1.2. AMOUS has really come a long way since the rewrite and everything. It's fully functional on ThinkPads now with track points. They behave normally. They don't get all jittery and nervous and whatnot, forcing everyone to use the single mouse driver. USB updates will be in 5.1.2.
Could I?
Yeah.
USB, is there somebody else that writes USB drivers?
Lars compiles his own USB drivers. Lars's drivers are 16-bit.
Okay.
They're not 32-bit drivers. Lars does not have an EHCI driver for USB 3. So he has USB 1 and 2 drivers.
You mean XHCI?
Yeah.
Sorry, XHCI. Don't mind me. I'm still tired from.
I mean, why would you ever use those?
The
I'm just
trick
curious, because they come up on, you get these lists or emails.
Some people find that for their particular mix of hardware, Lars's drivers work better for them.
And is that a little world of drivers that doesn't operate with the one that's provided with Arca Noae, or what's the story there?
Well, we certainly don't support our USB stack with foreign components added on top of it.
Okay, I mean, might they interfere is, I guess, the main question.
Interfere is probably not the right word. They may not be written to the same code base as other parts of the ArcaOS USB stack. David,
You
you
run them at the same time, they're mutually exclusive.
yeah. So,
Okay.
but I mean, the question is, could you run our USB base driver and then? I guess you couldn't. You have to use the USB base driver that goes with those class drivers.
You can run any class driver on top of ArcaOS USB stack. But the host controller drivers are a matched set.
Host controller driver. That's
Host
the
controller
word I was
drivers and the USB-B driver is a matched set.
Right.
The HID drivers are a matched set. Other independent class drivers, such as I don't know, network drivers or sound drivers, things like those are independent class drivers.
Yeah, and they're agnostic.
They don't care. You can run any of those.
Yeah. And some people find that they've got a particular USB device that works better with Lars's drivers, and for whatever reason, Lars takes great pains to quite often write his drivers around things that people are testing. So, my keyboard doesn't work with this, so he'll add tweaks for that particular keyboard. That's not the Arca Noae approach. I mean, that's sort of like a last resort for us. We write to the standard. But I'm not disparaging Lars's work at all, and he's certainly welcome to make whatever software he wants to make.
And what about that? Like, I have a laptop upstairs that's an AMD ThinkPad, and the keyboard and mouse do not work because of that different
I2O.
hardware layer. Yeah, I looked it up on Windows, I think, and I could see that it had that. So, is that?
on the board.
That's a whole nother can of worms. I've never seen an I2C keyboard.
I2C, thank
I
you.
mean, I can, if you're interested, I can bring it down and,
Yeah, I can look at it.
okay. You don't have to do anything. But I plug a, USB keyboard, and that's kind of crazy with a laptop.
It's like an old friend of mine who was a transmission rebuilder, and my brother had just purchased a 67 MG midget from our cousin. And he said to him, I'd like you to take a look at it. And Morris was standing back and says, I can see it from here. It looks like 3 speeds on the floor. Terrific. You'll be all set. That's as close as he wanted to get to it.
4 speeds.
Yes, it was. But the base keyboard driver was updated. I don't remember what that update specifically addressed, David. Do you? I noticed it in the SVN log. So I have to go back and look at our conversation at the time.
I think that may have had to do with missing, it was missing some of the hardware.
PS2.
Maybe that had to do with missing PS2.
Oh, was that what it was? Missing
I think
PS2
so.
support in the?
Well, then they removed PS2 from some of the machines, I think.
Oh, maybe was that it? Was it?
Something, I don't remember. I can look.
Was it the i8042 business?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really funny. We were testing a system for a client, and I had this little box on my desk, and it was so annoying because you'd have to hit the key like 20 times, and then finally it would boot up, and the machine was just so sluggish. And it turned out that it had no i8042
Yeah, it's for
chip
this
in it.
8042.
Yeah. And of course, all the IBM stuff expected an i8042 to always and forever be there. So when it wasn't there, it just, didn't know what to do. At least it didn't freeze, but it was almost unusable. So what did I do? I do what I generally do. I put it all in the box and I sent it to David. And I said, would you let me know what's going on with this thing? Because it's bizarre. So then, like the next day, David sends me a note. He says, there's no i8042 in it. I said, what do you mean there's no i8042? I mean, my first thought is, what, a machine without an i8042? And turns out that that's the way they're coming out these days.
Well, not all of them.
Not all of them, but
It's rare,
but it's becoming. It may be the beginning of a trend. You never can tell.
What about when something happens, like this laptop actually, I have ArcaOS installed on the hardware.
Yeah.
And I'll turn it on and it won't boot up, it just sits there. And I give up eventually, but then I'll reset it.
Does it
And
freeze?
then it'll come up.
Does it freeze at the logo?
Yes, it's on the logo.
Okay.
Mhm.
You
Is there any
can
way
try adding Alt F2 on that dummy file to your
I don't know what that is.
root directory.
I can find it.
Yeah. We think that may change the timing of the
Is that what's going on? There's some
initialization?
issue in it.
We think we don't have really clear evidence of anything at this point.
Okay.
I have my T590 does that. At every 4th boot, it just sort of
Sits
and waits for me to do something.
there, lets you admire the logo.
Yeah,
Exactly.
This machine was doing it quite frequently until the other day when they put that out there, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try that.
And that seems to have
I
addressed
had it
it.
happen again, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
I'll
have
ask
a
you.
lot of machines do that, and I don't know why I didn't say it, but I've noticed that it gets a little better with that, but all of them still freeze with our.
Dixie has speculated that he believes that it's the PSD.
Uh-huh.
I don't
Well,
I don't
he didn't
think
say-
so.
He didn't say
I-
the PSD caused it, he thought that the PSD was fixing it, basically, go out there and trigger something. That's what
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I was going to send you a note about that, but it didn't seem to me that was entirely plausible. That doesn't mean it's not a kernel defect. It doesn't mean it's not a kernel defect. It could be a kernel defect. I don't know whether it's a kernel defect that can be addressed in the PSD or whether we need to address it with a kernel update. If we do, that's an excellent example, by the way. I'm glad that we're talking about this. If we do have to address that kernel defect, that updated kernel would be a 5.1 update only. It would not be applicable to 5.0. So you'd have to have a 5.1 support and maintenance subscription to get that kernel update.
So you patch the IBM kernel? So
We have a limited ability to reverse engineer and provide binary fixes to IBM's code. We got no source code in our agreement with IBM.
Really?
But we can make fixes, and obviously to make fixes you need to be able to disassemble stuff. So we got a limited exclusion of the non-reverse engineering clause of the license. Specifically to address like nonsense like this. They said to me at the time, well, what defects do you want to fix? I said, how should I know? They haven't turned up yet. You fixed the last defects. That was in Fix Pack 5. But there were several other defects that we fixed since then because we have a whole series of kernels since then.
The issue is probably timing.
When it's hanging,
Yeah. It's just weird that it's so seemingly inconsistent.
Yeah.
That's the weird
At least
part.
it works the second time.
Generally, I've had mine has stuck 2 or 3 times in a row. Though.
No,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I'm not that patient.
but I think it got better with the alt F2 on.
I have a couple systems in my shop that do that, and I have tried to figure out what it is. I have one system that I can put one partition over and over and over and over every time until I boot the other partition first.
Really?
And then they all work.
That's a good one.
I don't,
Well,
I haven't been able to figure it out.
wow.
It's one of those weird things,
Also, why is there so much less memory available now?
Because a lot of the memory has been moved above the 32-bit boundary.
Uh-huh.
We can only access stuff below the 32-bit boundary.
Right, and, okay, like why do they do, what's up with that?
Because 64-bit machines don't care.
Yeah, 64-bit machines don't care.
Uh-huh.
So if you're building a
If you can access
machine,
it also, why not move it up there where there's lots of space?
Yeah.
You gotta put all the hardware down in the lower part. Maybe they're not even doing that anymore either.
Uh-huh.
if you're building a machine that's going to come preloaded with a 64-bit operating system on it, what do you care?
Right.
When they make these laptops, they don't make them and say, gee, if we do this, people running OS2 are going to be locked out. They don't do that. They say, what, you're going to ship this with what on it? Oh, we're going to ship it with 64-bit Windows. Well, then they just make sure that whatever they do is compatible with 64-bit Windows. That's it. I don't blame them for that. I mean, you got to draw a line somewhere. If we were all making machines that were DOS compatible, think about the problems we'd have then.
Right.
But that's a fact of life. And as a result, some machines have more available system memory below the 4 gigabyte boundary than others.
Like when I use Quassel, which is a QT app for the IRC stuff when we have our meetings. And sometimes when I start that, it says there's insufficient memory and it won't start up. And then I have to kill maybe the browser and then it'll work.
Well, you get
Is
memory
that a symptom of that?
fragmentation.
What's that?
You get memory fragmentation.
Uh-huh.
So what happens is you get little holes of memory that are available. So if you add them all up, it looks like, oh, look, I've got 2 gigabytes of memory available. But they're not contiguous.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got, 10K here and 30K there and 50K there, that's 90K. But if you have something that needs to load that needs 150K, it's not going to fit. If you have something that needs to load that needs 40K, contiguous, not going to fit, even though you think you've got 90K available. That's fragmentation. So unload stuff that's using that memory that's caused the fragmentation. Now you've got a larger contiguous block, then you can start adding your programs into that blocking. I get that with Java, with CMonkey, OpenOffice, and if I open Money Dance in a Java session, I can't, it won't work. Typically, yeah, the Java session will hang up and won't open. So if I kill SeaMonkey first, I can open the other two, and then I can start SeaMonkey after that. So that's unfortunately a condition of running ported 64-bit applications in a 32-bit space. There's only so much we can do about that. And the problem will get worse as time goes on. The question is, it's a race. Is the problem going to get so bad that within the next 50 years we can't use the operating system, or is it going to get so bad within the next 5 years that we can't use the operating system? Anybody's guess.
And the VMs have a lot more memory.
You can add more memory to VMs, yeah. But VMs have their own limitations. It's
But basic, when you run that MEM utility, it's like 3.5 gigabytes.
Yeah.
Always.
Sure. Yeah, we've improved the USB stick creation utility. Addressed some issues that were left over from previous incarnations. There is still an issue with our hybridized USB stick. When I say hybridized, I mean it boots traditional and UEFI. Creating that stick on Windows 10 is problematic because of the way Windows believes the partitions should be laid out. I don't know that that's something that we can actually fix. So
create it on Linux or OS too.
yeah. Or create a DVD. Use optical media. We're working on potential workarounds for the problem. Maybe the potential workaround is on those machines to be able to make a UEFI only stick, or a traditional, well, you wouldn't need a traditional one then only, because the traditional ones aren't going to be running that version of Windows that would give them a problem. So, but in the meantime, we've refined the process so that the stick creation utility should not fail in as many edge cases as it does now. The updater has been tweaked so we can address things like files that have been flagged read-only that were interrupting our updating process. Now we work around those situations. How do these files get flagged read-only? You have a third-party application that has to make changes to your network configuration. And the guy who wrote that third-party application in the 1990s decided it would be a good idea to make protocol ini read-only. And then you run your updater, and the updater stops right in the middle of the process. And you can't figure out why it is. And the IBM installer, good old SE-inst, the IBM installer tells you something unexpected happened. Now that's a helpful message. That's like the check engine light. So some more research, and finally we see, it's failing because it can't update protocol ini with the new stuff. And there are certain parts of the base installer that we run even when we do updates, just because we may have updated something, and that's the way that we install and update that particular component. So we were seeing some odd updating failures. We've addressed more of those things to limit those number of failures. So you asked about the Samba 4 server. It's planned. I'd like to get it in there for 5.1.2. But I need to get it on par with the client. It's got to be exactly the same version. Paul wanted to update the client and then update the server to match. And I was I'm not really hesitant about that, but it's more to test, because then we got to test the client versus just a server that matches the client we already distributed. On the upside, there have been fixes to the client, so we probably should get those out. It's planned. I'll see if we can do it. These are mainly post 5.1.2. So the printer manager, that's always been one of Alex's things. He would really like to have a new printer manager. That's a unified printer manager that you don't need to use 4 different utilities to manage your printers. The desktop notebook background page. There was a bug that IBM introduced in MCP that doubles up JPEG listings, it doesn't show PNGs, and we can now use PNGs for backgrounds. I think you can use PNGs for backgrounds. But there have been a few things that. So that's sort of in the planning stages with a new feature. This is probably going to be an ex-workplace feature, by the way. I've talked to Rich about it. To rotate desktops randomly or on a schedule.
The desktop background.
Desktop backgrounds, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we can get those at some point post 5.1.2. Again, that would be something that could be updated completely separate from the operating system anyway. So it's not waiting on another ISO release. There's a new multi-Mac driver that's in development. David will talk more about that, I guess, in his MMIGC.
Yeah.
And print to PDF, which was something that Andy suggested some time ago, that Alex has given us a proof of concept for that, to set up the print to PDF printer, so that out of the box you can at least print to PDF from anywhere on the desktop.
I have a suggestion, I think it's significant. You have to give an option what PDF level you're going to print to.
Okay.
If you don't, you'll create PDFs. If you just say, oh, sort of the Windows idea, we're going to go to the latest one, a lot of PDF readers can't read them.
Well, we wouldn't generate PDFs that we couldn't read with Lucide.
Yeah, but there are a lot of other readers besides that.
There are.
Yeah, if suppose you send the PDF to somebody.
Well, that person should be using Lucide, obviously.
Well, but there's a question on that one too, actually, I had, because if you're adhering to the PDFA standard for archiving PDFs, that's a different set of structures in the header of that PDF
Right.
than what you would have in like just a PDF manual that you download
Right,
from a
right.
website.
I-
So the PDFA would be at least an important other classification.
It's a good suggestion. I'm teasing with you.
You got to give options.
Yes,
For
it would
example,
be good to give options as to what level of PDF and default to something reasonable.
Well, let me give you some practical examples, because I get PDFs all the time
Mhm.
that I can't read because I use a particular program I bought from Adobe, which is very good for me. It does everything I want.
How many years ago did you license that from Adobe?
15.
That's why it has trouble with some of the newer
Yeah,
formats.
so I talked to the fellow, Dov Isaacs, who designed this stuff, and he explained it to me. So they're new. So sometimes you just get an error message, and it says there are features this doesn't present. Okay, that's good design. It means you failed gracefully, and you give an informative error message.
Right.
Talk about the informative error messages. Then the newer ones, nothing can read them. I mean, you put them in a browser and they'll interpret them. But these are ones typically which are PDFs in which you have filled out a form.
Fill-ins, yeah.
These cannot be read by the old standard readers, and lots of people use these for various reasons.
Fill-ins, annotated PDFs.
Okay,
Yep.
so, but let me give you an example now. So what I have to go, when I get some, I have to refile it, because I keep all my PDFs, thousands of PDFs, manuals and all kinds of things in a particular folder on my computer. I have to be able to open all at the same.
Mhm.
So I have to refile them, and the way you do that is you go to a wonderful website called convert.media.com, and normally people will put in, you know, JPEGs and all kinds of converted to PDF. You can actually put a PDF in, but it asks you, you want 1.4, 1.5, 1. And it's the only one I know about, but you might want to look at that.
And you know what the problem is with going to that online site to convert your PDF? Whoever's running that online site has access
Yeah, sure,
to your
that's-
PDF, which may or may not have private information in it.
Tax returns and everything else. of
Thank
course.
you.
But
As
you
a guy
can't-
who has an accounting office, I can't do that.
Okay.
I can't.
Anyway, I'm just thinking, so, this is some fellow, you know, like us, just a guy, you know, who does this, and it didn't work it was offline, I got a hold of him, he said, oh, yeah, you know, we're trying to bring them, you know, just some guy running on his bedroom, but it's a wonderful, service.
And he was providing that service for free.
For free.
See, he wasn't harvesting any data. He
We
was
don't
just
know about
providing
that.
it
Maybe
for
that's what he
free.
was selling. Yeah. But I just think, do not release this thing printed level 1.8 or 1.9. You've got to give options.
It would definitely not be, it would not default to 1.8 or 1.9. I don't know that it would default to 1.7, probably 1.4, which is really old PDF.
That's what I use.
And that's acceptable
Everybody
by
can read that.
everything. Right. But then again, maybe you want to do something else with the PDF when you're printing the PDF so that it's more usable.
So give options.
Yes.
That's what he does. It asks you what you want.
I will, as I say, we have a proof of concept right now that we're working on. Here's the thing, there is a PDF printer object for cups. And it does provide some rudimentary options for version of PDF and whatnot. Configuring it is a bit of a pain in the neck. And we want something that is easily configurable out of the box, that we can set up with a reasonable set of defaults during the installation of the operating system.
This has to be a print time choice.
Right, and the PDF cups printer does not give you that choice easily. You can do it, but you need to,
Have more printer objects?
yeah, you can have more printer objects, each one set up with a different set of defaults. And then you have to determine, well, which is your default printer?
Yeah, maybe that's what you have to do.
Well, let me see, I honestly have not had a chance to look at Alex's proof of concept yet, and I keep apologizing to him because I haven't had the time to do it. But it's something that we do want to have. It's a feature that we want to add to the operating system. And so the proof of concept is our first step to getting there.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you for your input, and I will definitely keep that in my mind when I'm looking at it, when I discuss it with Alex.
I get message from the senior center in Somerville, Massachusetts.
Mhm.
Every week they send a PDF. I can't read the thing. I have to load it in a browser.
I hear you,
You
believe
know,
me.
but I mean, they don't know anything. They just, you know.
I know,
Because there's no choice.
It's like clients who say, "Oh, I'll email it to you," and then there's a 25 megabyte attachment. God help me. And what's the attachment? Snapshots from the camera. Each one's 5 megabytes.
Now, of course, they're all
Per
16.7 million colors. That's what they're doing.
At least they're not HEIS.
And there's no choice
Oh.
on the camera. That's the only way you can save it.
Those HEIC images. Oh. You know what I use for those? Are you ready? as I said, I have my Windows servers are virtualized. I have GIMP 2.0 running under Windows Server 2008 R2. And I load them up in GIMP 2.0 and I export them as JPEGs. Because again, I can't use an online form. Someone will get a notice from the IRS or something, take a snapshot and send it to me, and it's an HEIC. Because he took a snapshot with his Apple camera, which helpfully gives me an HEIC image that I can't do anything with. So what do? I can't go to an online site and just upload my client's notice from the IRS. Oh my God. They'll shoot me at dawn. So I had to come up with a way to do it in-house. And since I don't have a working GIMP on OS2, that was the next easiest thing for me to do. I have GIMP running on Linux, but not remotely accessible from my desktop easily. So I run GIMP 2.0 on Windows. I don't do a lot with it, but it's great for doing that kind of stuff. It's great for doing that kind of stuff. That's how I work around it.
Well, at work I was installing GIMP for that very reason, and then switched to Nomax, which unfortunately our Nomax didn't have the support, but Nomax is much smaller.
But it doesn't support HEIC.
Not on ours, but it does on Windows.
Ah,
And it's a lot smaller, comes up a lot faster, you know, instead of having to wait there for the GIMP to. All right, we got some stuff on the YouTube here.
yeah.
Dutch user. Explain people can how also lower kernel memory fragmentation, lower shared kernel memory. Asked what browser was being used and mark big DLLs to load high. And then R. Gambo says, yeah, forgetting to mark the 250 megabyte monster to load high is a killer. And then is loading DLL high perfect? No, but loading large DLLs low is the very worst you can do. End of story. You are better off fragmenting the high memory area and not the low memory area. Warning, do never mark OS2 DLLs such as PM merge DLL or DOSCall1.dll, etc. to load high.
That's for sure.
Only use GCC compiled DLLs and experiment carefully.
The best part of everything you just read was experiment carefully.
Well, it also, you were talking about some of the kernel fixes. One of those was to be able to allow the
Allow us to unload modules that were loaded
without
high.
tracking.
Yeah, so is everyone familiar with the load high utility? So you can load certain DLLs, code or data, or both, into high memory. Forcibly load them into high memory.
What is that above 512 or what is that?
David, this is more along your lines than mine. High memory in this case is above 512.
Should we be using the microphones for audio stuff?
They seem to be hearing us, so
They seem to be hearing us, so then we don't have to pass the microphones around in this room.
I don't remember.
Yeah, neither do
I
I.
think you're right, but I don't.
I think it's 512. I think it's 512. But yes, the ported GCC applications tend to build really, really, really huge DLLs. So they either don't fit in lower memory or you end up with tremendous amount of fragmentation. If you can load them high, it's a better use of your memory resources. But it depends upon your application mix, the hardware, the computer architecture itself. Sometimes the build of the application, so what worked for one version of SeaMonkey or Firefox doesn't work for another version. You have to know what you're doing and experiment carefully. I don't load anything high.
I don't either.
And I know that you don't. I mean, whenever this comes up as a talking point in a meeting, the question is your mileage, the answer is your mileage may vary. Some of us don't rely on that method at all. And I run some pretty big things. I run SeaMonkey, and I run OpenOffice, and I run Java applications. And yeah, I have to unload stuff and reload stuff sometimes just to consolidate my fragmented memory. But my uptime can be, weeks. It depends. Jeff, you had a question?
So this is as a non-programmer, having only rudimentary knowledge of this. If there is something that you have to save in a location and you can't due to the limitations of a 32-bit system, couldn't that be temporarily saved to a USB stick? Okay, so there's a problem, you could withdraw it, but you can address that always and put it the
You can address it as storage space, but you can't address it as working system RAM.
It's not possible to access it on some movable.
The only thing what you're suggesting
Because
is
it'd be fast.
put your swap file on a USB stick.
Something like that.
I recommend not.
That would not be a good thing.
No, but technically, can it be done?
Technically, you could do that. Your system would hang when you ejected the USB stick.
Well, don't do it while you're running the, it's just.
You
a
only
dongle.
get to set your swapper location once.
Actually, can you do that?
Put your
I think
swapper on
I
a
think you
on a
guys are
removable.
talking about- I think you guys are talking cross purposes here.
So
What
if you
you're
have a
talking
machine-
about is system memory.
If you have a machine that recognizes 1.5 gigabytes of system memory instead of up to 4 gigabytes,
Yeah.
you're stuck with that. Your swapper will allow you to use up to 4 gigabytes of space. You'll just be swapping. You'll have to swap to your SSD.
Are you talking about to a USB drive, or are you talking about to RAM?
A USB drive to set that as a, it's not like a space.
Why would you
station.
need it?
Because you say that some things are not accessible.
You have a machine that's got 16 gigabytes of memory installed in it, 16 gigabytes of RAM installed in it. ArcaOS will only see 1.5 gigabytes as system RAM. ArcaOS can recognize up to 4 gigabytes of system RAM. It will start swapping.
And USB has nothing to do with that.
Okay, so,
You want to put your swap file then on the most responsive, least used device. Least used if possible.
It's going to be an SSD.
This is going to be an SSD.
SSD, well,
And not in a RAM disk, because every time we go to our PAE RAM disk,
Shut this whole system down.
the processor has to shut down and start up again, switching back and forth.
Swap on the-
The performance is dreadful. Put it on the SSD.
okay, thank you.
The SSD is going to respond to you almost as quickly as system RAM. And you can use up to 4 gigabytes of RAM altogether. You'll just start using the SSD sooner than if you had 3 gigabytes of available system RAM. That's all. I mean, it's not tragic.
But the problem with USB, even if you wanted to do that, your problem's going to be is that that doesn't have a drive letter yet when it gets to that stage, so it's going to default to put it on your boot.
That's a
drive.
good point, yeah.
So,
Yeah, it won't have, because the USB driver isn't loaded at the time that the swapper is specified, the location of the swapper is specified in config sys, that drive letter that you want won't be there for it to swap. You'd have to try some real sleight of hand, and I don't know that that would even work. Because you may say swap path equals E:\\, but it may only use that to identify what you think is E, and it may use a physical device that it associates with E. So even if you were to try to change out the definition of E, it might not make a difference.
Thank you. Virgin, sorry.
You're welcome.
Our Gambo says, this is going back to the HEIC, asks if, do we have the image magic command line tools, which I'm not sure about, but newer versions can convert them but even under Linux Mint, I had to install additional programs. I know that on OpenSUSE that I've seen going through the updates, there's a libheif, which probably we don't have that, which is probably why our image.
We'd have to ask
Probably why our
Paul,
Nomax
because
doesn't work.
Paul builds ImageMagick.
But the image but if we had, but it probably needs the libheif.
Most likely, yeah.
If we had that, Nomax could probably also.
Well, look, what I would like to see is a plugin for Lucene that reads HEIC.
Yeah.
And then you could print from Lucene to a PDF and convert your HEIC to PDF. Lucene, I mean, by itself doesn't have the ability to export to PDF, but you could print it to a PDF printer that way.
EMView would be nice that way.
I mean, there are a few workarounds. It would be nice if DFC supported HEIC. But, yeah, it's a pain in the neck, can I tell you. That's it in a nutshell. We've looked at improving the iNet config settings, and every time we get into it, there are just as many systems that are negatively impacted by my performance enhancing settings as systems that are positively affected. Glenn and I ran into this before. I gave him a set of things to try to optimize Samba performance, which optimized it for me, and as soon as he implemented it where he was, the performance dropped like a stone. So it's really tough to improve on the iNet config settings. IBM's iNet config settings were written at a time when we were using dial-up internet access. So you think, well, and no one had a gigabit network in those days, right? So you need to expand the caches and whatnot. It works for me on my network, but others have tried it and the performance has just gone into the tank. So we would love to improve the iNet config settings. We have not yet found a reasonable mix that is an overall improvement in the base settings for almost everyone versus a 50-50 better worse situation. So as a result, we've left the iNet config alone the way IBM left the defaults. The system-wide SQUID proxy and privoxy. I use a chained SQUID and privoxy proxy setup myself on this machine. And it allows me to access certain sites with CMonkey that I wouldn't be able to access otherwise. That doesn't mean that if the site uses JavaScript that's beyond CMonkey's capabilities that I can run it. But there are certain things that I am able to load up that otherwise wouldn't load because SQUID grabs it and presents it to CMonkey in a readable format. And one of the things that I've wanted to do was to design a basic configuration GUI for those two and make that available as a system installable package. I built a later privoxy. The privoxy upstream team was not very receptive because I didn't include their SSL support, which uses Wolf SSL. And I looked at building Wolf SSL, and I needed 3 or 4 other things that weren't yet available. And I started building one of those, and I got that built, and I started building the next one, and I ran into problems compiling it, and I just said, oh, which is unfortunately the problem. So I have to get back and look at it. So they weren't accepting of my build of the later privoxy. And I never discussed it with Paul to see if he had better luck with it. But the current build of privoxy for OS2, both from the official channels and from Arca Noae, although I don't know that I packaged mine. I don't know that I packaged mine for Arca Noae. The current build does not support SSL, which makes Privoxy less and less relevant, shall we say. Because how many sites do you visit that aren't SSL these days? Because someone got the great idea that everything, even completely public information that requires no input from the user, should be secure. I mean, I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me, but someone came up with that idea.
All the while it has little things in there gathering information.
Yeah, there is that. There's a potential for an updated Clock 01 sys driver. I don't know how great that potential is. You may,
Work on it lately.
yeah. We've talked about it. You said that you were thinking about it.
I'd like to look at it, but I've not had a chance to get back.
Yeah. Again, there's this list of priorities, and it's just not a major thing. Fixing the keyboards so that they work was a major thing for a little while. You know, so we'll see where we go with that. And support for those I2C devices.
Now, is that, conceptually, you'll develop an I2C driver from which all higher levels will
That's the
benefit?
idea.
Sorry?
That's the idea.
Okay. So like my thing with the keyboard and mouse that don't work, should work? I don't know about
That's
this
the
stuff.
idea.
Oh, well.
Theoretically.
Good luck.
Guess
I want I2C support only to disable the touchpad pads by software. That's the only thing.
That's completely doable. You can do that.
Yeah, yeah. But you can do it right now or when you have I2C
You can
support?
disable the touchpad.
With software,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Because I only do it on the BIOS and sometimes we do all
You can do that right now.
Oh, is there software available or?
Yeah.
Does
Command line switch on the drive.
AMOS has that switch now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So when I said before that AMOS is now functional for ThinkPads,
Okay,
yeah.
Guest 31 says Nathan Woodruff should have a port of Wolf SSL.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'll hit him up for a port of Wolf SSL. Next time I get into building Privoxy, unless someone else wants to build Privoxy, which would be great. I get very little time to build stuff these days. WLAN drivers, wireless. Everyone wants wireless. And David can tell you what a thrilling and rewarding thing it is to work on a wireless driver.
It is, it's great, so if anybody wants to take that over. Anybody wants to do that, come see me, I'll give you.
It's absolutely fabulous because it's really not much more work than a wired driver.
That's an interesting note. I was at Vintage Computer Festival. You gave us a copy of ArcaOS to
Mhm.
award. It went to a device driver developer in Silicon Valley. And
That guy is a device driver
yeah,
developer.
and
It's interesting.
he said he would love to do some work for us. And so I asked him about Wi-Fi, and he said, "Not a chance." So he knows what he's talking about.
Maybe he would be interested in the I2C stuff though.
Yeah, Matt has his contact info. I don't know if I've got it.
Or a DT audio driver.
The problem with I2C.
Or a DT audio driver.
The problem with I2C is there's so many controllers out there, they all work different.
Yeah, that's what you were saying to
really?
me. Was it's not like a
Not a standard.
standardized thing.
The X2C bus is, but the controllers that make that happen are all different.
And I'll bet all those manufacturers are as sharing with their specifications as
Yeah, I don't know.
NVIDIA.
Oh, I think that's all top secret.
Oh, man. DT Audio, which used to be DTA, Digital Transfer Agent, which we licensed from Dr. John Gao, allows us to get audio from WinOS 2 sessions routed through UniAud, and also from DOS sessions using a virtual Sound Blaster device. We do not have a virtual Sound Blaster driver yet. We need someone to build that. And there aren't a lot of people who want to build VDDs or have had experience building VDDs. So it's a little slow going. But that will be that and real joystick support will be the two key things for bringing us to a gaming release of ArcaOS.
You talked about that last year. So
Yeah, it's
still a dream.
still a dream. Still a dream. You know, we with Arca Noae compatibility system, ANCS, which allows us to run on UEFI hardware, DOS sessions and WinOS 2 sessions, which were becoming hard to find on more modern hardware, all of a sudden became commonplace again because we set up the system so that these things just run the way they expected to run in the first place. So all of a sudden, DOS and WinOS 2 is something usable for us again, particularly retro gaming, because that is a huge vertical market, a huge industry in gaming. And people who are into retro gaming in particular, you can't replicate the experience of playing a DOS video game on a modern system. It doesn't feel the same. But ArcaOS is uniquely qualified to run that DOS game, that VDM. No other operating system produces VDMs like OS 2 does. So when we get that virtual Sound Blaster and that joystick support, that'll really be
You'll
it.
sell millions of copies.
Well, you know something? I initially, I'm not ashamed to admit it, I poo-pooed the whole idea. I said, gaming, who plays games? And Rachel said to me, Dad, do you know who plays games? And she opened my eyes to the size of that vertical market. Billions of dollars a year in gaming. And I was,
You
who
mean
knew?
specifically DOS gaming?
Billions of dollars in gaming, all gaming, right? How many millions to billions are in retro gaming remains to be seen. But I know
it's
that
still huge.
it's
I
huge.
work with guys in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and all right, so they're geeks, but the retro gaming thing is huge.
It's huge. It's huge.
Like Matt. Right?
Like-
Matt's into that stuff. Right?
Yeah. I mean, people would say to me when I was doing a lot of IT consulting, well, do you play this game, that game? I work on these things. I don't play games on them. I want to play a game. I get away from this thing. I mean, my relaxation is not sitting in front of the screen for more screen time so that my eyes turn into cantaloupes. I want to do something that's not this. But I never once stepped back and thought there are people who actually do spend less time in front of the screen working on making these things work than we do. And there are. And they're not just 8 years old. And once I opened my eyes to that, I thought, wow, this has some potential here. So it's something we definitely want to do. Getting the development talent focused on it is the hard part.
Maybe
Yeah.
this guy from the show.
Yeah,
I hope
maybe.
we didn't lose track of him.
No, Matt's in touch with him. Matt's in
Oh,
touch with him.
okay.
Yeah. And he's now in the Arca Noae customer database.
Oh.
We have arguably the largest database of customers running the OS2 platform of any organization
On Earth.
other than IBM, if IBM still has their database of customers.
And maybe the American Spelunking Society.
And maybe the American Spelunking Society.
Is that cola shop?
So we have a new website feature that will be coming soon to the Arca Noae website near you, which is a hardware database.
Which is a what? Oh,
A hardware database. Everyone asks us about a hardware database. Is my machine compatible? Will ArcaOS run on my machine? How do I know? You know, our beta testers are few. The available hardware grows every single day. So, I'm going to give you 3 screenshots of this upcoming feature, and then we can move on. How's that? So, give me a second here.
Just for your edification, it's 1201.
It's 12:01, and food is here. So, this is going to be real quick. And so that's the creation of a new hardware entry. So you run your test log generic. You go to that specific page on the Arca Noae website. You fill in just a few drop boxes. A little bit of narrative if you like, the comment. And you browse to and upload your test log. The system parses it in the background. And that's a detail page. Let me show you. That's what the hardware database itself, the grid will look like, and it will be filled with different systems as more and more people contribute their hardware, working or semi-working. A half star is obviously something that sort of works, but not as much as we'd like. Blank one is something that doesn't work. And then, when you drill down to one of those entries, you get more detail on that particular machine. So this is something that has been often requested. And again, we haven't had the development resources to really do this, but Jeroen has been working on this for quite some time. I thought we were going to have a live version to test on the site this past week, but that didn't quite go according to plan. So soon, does soon mean in the next month, 2 months, 3 months? I couldn't say, but it's going to happen. You know, I would imagine within a reasonable amount of time. You know, before Warpstock Europe next May. Sometime in between, we'll have this set up and working.
How do you collect this information? Like if we have a laptop that works, you want to know about that, or?
Yeah, exactly. Or if you have a laptop that almost works, that you know some parts work and some parts don't, sure.
Okay.
Just to upload the test log. The test log is anonymized and discarded. So we don't take any personal information out of the test log to publish on the site. So your license information and whatnot is private. And then we discard the test log after it's parsed.
How does it work? There's a test routine that you offer, or it's built in?
The test log program that ships with ArcaOS and is updated regularly by David, and we have links on the site to download the latest
So if you
version of
submit a
it.
bug, you submit the test log.
When you open a ticket, you'd better submit a test log. If you don't, I feel very sorry for you. There are people who regret to this day that 5 years ago they opened a ticket without a test log.
And it's still sitting there.
And they're still sitting there waiting for a response. I mean, bottom line is, if you want your problem addressed, follow the directions, attach a test log. Don't just say, my monitor doesn't work.
Louis?
It's time. Yeah.
It might also be good to have a list of what is known not to work.
we have some lists of things that are known not to work, but nothing,
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody's tried out a machine and they know it's not going to install, it's not gonna work, it's just
Yeah.
nice that somebody have that list so they can bypass that and look at something different.
Well, it could be in that same database.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll suggest that to Jeroen as to how someone would enter something that doesn't work.
I mean, they obviously can't do a test log, but they can make a.
Right. So they can't,
submit
it
an
doesn't work, they can't get that. So
Make
they
an
can
entry
still
that
make
says
an entry that
it
says
can't work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
doesn't work.
tried it, no.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but
The-
that's more complicated.
the
You know,
only
but it
people who
doesn't
can
boot,
upload-
installs when it's booting,
Can't get a test log,
it
would be
loads,
pretty good.
but you can't run the test log program.
Yeah, if you can't get a test log, that's pretty
You
definitive.
can't run the system.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't, that's good enough.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to know machines that just wouldn't boot, that's different from not being able to submit a test log. You know, it might
No,
not be a
it's-
hopeless case.
No, it
But,
isn't.
well, if it's UEFI and it doesn't boot into the other system, would a DAS info dump help you?
Um,
Not really.
It's hard to say, depends on the situation.
We'll start with what we can gather.
This is a good start.
Yeah, I think so. And this will grow, according to our needs and our
It's
desires.
a great idea.
Our meaning all of us, not just Arca Noae, because really, the benefit to Arca Noae is fewer trouble tickets for systems that don't work. Beyond that, the benefit to everyone else is less wasted time on systems that, Joe says that the USB doesn't work on this machine, and the test log proves that we don't recognize that hardware, then spending hours and hours and hours trying to figure out why the USB isn't working, that person's saved from having to do that.
Is this your idea?
No, actually, it wasn't my idea. It was it came from elsewhere in the among the staff. I always wanted Martin to have a hardware database.
Well, I have it on the wiki, but it's not a database.
Again, it's one of those things that Arca Noae, up to this point, has not done because of a human resource concern. We really did not think that we had the human resources to manage something like that. But the idea came up that, we get all this great information out of a test log, why don't we parse it and make a database? And I have to admit, I was very skeptical that we could effectively do that. But from what I've seen of it, looks like this is going to work. Looks like this is going to work really well. So I'm anxious for us to get it refined to the point where we can turn it loose.
So this is the alternative to the Microsoft system where they just tested things internally then, is that these are approved. You're actually invoking the public, which is a much better idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Wikipedia, it's a wonderful thought.
Exactly. So with that, we have another,
I do have one quick question on this subject. Is there a cutoff where you would say, if the machine is more than 5 years old, we don't care. More than 10 years old, don't submit. I mean, we've got 25 machines we could try this on, but some of them are 15 years
no,
old.
we have no age cutoff for systems.
Okay, so if I went back to the office next week and tried this on 20 different machines, ran
Sure.
as long as
Look, if the processor predates the Pentium, if the processor predates is a Pentium Pro or earlier, we don't support that.
okay, so
That's our cutoff.
Okay.
If you look at the Arca Noae website, at the information for ArcaOS, you'll see what our minimum hardware requirements are. So if you have a machine that has 256 megabytes of RAM and it's maxed out with, a 486 in it.
Right, and that's, I wasn't sure if there was any value to you in knowing if, my 10-year-old Lenovo all-in-one was gonna run it or not. But if there is, because we've done a couple of those installs just, for grins
Right,
to see
right.
if they would work. But once this system's in place, we'll get those test logs and we'll just submit.
Yeah,
edits
great.
again.
The purpose of this is not to find out how many systems you can run on. The purpose of this is to help people buy a new system.
Well, and that's why I'm asking if there's
People are not
value in
gonna be
having
going out and
old.
buying a 25-year-old system.
Well,
But they
that's
may
why-
have one.
They might have one.
They might buy a 5-year-old system.
Yeah, they might buy a 5-year-old system, sure.
May I make a comment?
Surely.
So I have a big installed base of hardware and programs, which constrains me significantly. I mean, I got 40 years of business records from a certain program I use.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important for me to have compatibility going forward and going backward. So basically, I just buy old computers now. I give you an example, a T60. I got 10 years ago at the MIT swap meet for $35. It's still running. And and I've got T43s which are still running.
No,
David,
this
you-
presentation was brought to you by a
Yeah.
T43.
Yeah, so I think this is very, and so I'm negotiating with somebody now who's got a pristine T60, which I'm just gonna keep there as one of my backups. I'll talk about it. And when something goes wrong, which it did to me last week when I started my presentation, the T60 I was working on, which had everything compatible with all the software, compatible with all the hardware, the printer drivers, everything, it just wouldn't boot as I sat down to start on a presentation. But when I get this one from this fellow on eBay, who's gonna configure it for me, it'll just be a mirror image. I say, okay, I've got it, right here. And there's a very active trade in these old machines. Maybe it's for gaming, or maybe it's because of people like me that are sort of constrained that they're, it's like people running old OS2 software, it just works with everything they have.
True,
In the,
true.
in the factory.
Well, there was Moore's Law was relevant up to a certain point. But we got to the point where there are computers that are 20 years old, like this T43, that perform acceptably. I can do my work on it. 20 years ago, I couldn't use a 20-year-old computer and work acceptably because it was way too limited. Slow is not the right word, right? Because electrons all move at a constant velocity. So they weren't slow, but they were resource constrained. This machine works fine for my daily use. So yeah, older machines are still usable. But David's point is well taken about old hardware. The point is not to see how old is the oldest hardware on which we can run ArcaOS, but someone who has a machine that's 20 years old, will it run ArcaOS acceptably? That's sort of the thing. Age is not really the factor. Usability is the factor more than anything else. We have a machine that we think would be usable. Is it compatible? That's kind of where we are.
Yeah, the question that keep coming up, that we keep getting is, hey, I wanna go buy a system to run ArcaOS on, what should I get?
Yeah.
That's the question we get, and that's the purpose of this.
Yep.
Is to answer that question.
And I've tried going into office stores and even, dare I say it, Best Buy. Oh. With my USB stick to try some of the laptops, but they lock them down so they won't boot off the USB stick. And then I have to get into the BIOS, and then the kid with the pimples on his face comes over and says, "Can I help you, mister?" No, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm good. Go back to what you're doing, Randy. All's good. Joe, what was I
Asking
saying?
for OS2 drivers for the equipment.
What was this?
Asking for OS2 drivers for the equipment.
OS, do you mean that Mac operating system? No, not that. No.
Dear God.
Two. So yeah, that's the question that we get though, is, yeah, I saw this machine advertised at such and such a place for $600. Can I run ArcaOS on this? I don't know, go buy it and find out. Well, if I buy it and then it doesn't work, I don't know that I can return it. Yeah, I understand. You may have to unload it on someone else or something else.
Lenovo's good, you can always send it back 30 days.
See, 30 days and you can send it back as a brick to Lenovo after you've
Not even a brick.
completely locked the thing up. It's lunchtime, everyone. We've run our time. Jeff, you were supposed to do your Samba thing.
Well, you used up all the time.
I used up all the time.
Yeah.
It's my
It was
fault.
very interesting.
I owe you time now for your Samba thing.
Arsenic.
I won't take a lot of time.
Arsenic.
It's a project in process, but I think we'll all learn something and I'll learn something.
Okay.
And it's continuing.
Well-
This is the result of an email I sent you in 2012, which I said, how would you like to talk on arsenic? And you said, that's a great idea. I've been thinking about it.
Excellent, excellent.
So we have lunch delivered.
Yeah, lunch is right here.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's as much an applause for the audience as it is for me.